Nick Fuentes. There's a new video from him. Let's see what he's saying. I think I'll agree with him today. Let's see.
There's almost something poetic about it. They impeached him. They sabotaged him. They tried to steal the election a bunch of times. They shot him. They charged him. They convicted him, raided his house, went after his family, went after his people, arrested his supporters, dragged his name through the mud, accused him of being a rapist.
They did all of that. It's good that Nick Fuentes acknowledges it. I mean, the deep state, the establishment really went after Trump hard. And it's one issue of that is that for him, losing political relevance, like becoming a failed president, is not just, loss of influence. He's in danger. They'll come after him again. They'll try to impeach him. They'll go after his allies, his friends, and everyone. If he loses power, it has huge personal consequences for him beyond just loss of influence, which puts a lot of pressure on him to escalate instead of surrender to Iran. And escalation means the global economy gets completely fucked over. Nothing like the Strait of Hormuz is nothing compared to all the oil infrastructure in the Gulf going up in flames.
He overcame all of it. He won the election. Against all odds, he did everything and anything necessary to come out on top. And what was the thing to do him in? Was it the grand conspiracy of the Democrats? Was it fate itself? Was it mortality? It was himself.
It was himself. I will say that he had help. That, yes, the deep state, the Israeli lobby, they tricked him into this war. I'm not going to give them a pass on that. Yes, it's 100% Trump's fault too. And he could let himself be tricked. But those who tried to trick him deserve some of the blame too.
He did himself in. He finished himself off. Over this.
He did.
2 weeks, struggling and scrambling and dying and losing supporters left and right and doing deep, deep, lasting damage to his legacy and his brand.
Oh yeah, his legacy and brand are finished. They're finished. People don't know that yet because he hasn't surrendered to Iran yet. But his alternatives are surrender to Iran right now, and his brand and legacy is finished right now. Just keep the ceasefire going, and the economy slowly dies as the Strait of Hormuz is closed. And that finishes him too. It just takes longer. Or he escalates, and the Middle East goes up in flames, and his legacy is finished pretty much immediately too. So that's why we have the extension of a ceasefire, because escalating finishes him politically. Surrendering to Iran finishes him politically. So his only option, his only ray of light is to extend the ceasefire and try to convince Iran to surrender to him somehow. It won't work, but he's going to try, because that's the only path to political survival for him. Or I just say it's not even a path. It's the glimmer of a path, but Iran is never going to surrender to him. So he's just delaying the inevitable at this point.
And it's him. It's weird. You can't even look at him the same way. It's not the same person. I said this throughout the year during the election. I said the guy in 2016 that almost moved you to tears when he said...
He is right. Trump has changed. But I think it's also that deep state approach to him changed. During 2016, deep state had basically no influence over him. His appointments, he went with the establishment. He put establishment points for all his cabinet posts, and those were all worked against him. It was adversarial towards him. He tried to impeach him, to remove him, to get rid of him. He was treated as a foreign parasite or a foreign agent, and the system tried to destroy him. The second term, he's been infiltrated. His cabinet, again, is full of deep state people, or obviously. But he's also... One very telling thing was a few weeks ago when there was a leak. He was speaking to reporters, supposedly off camera, but he didn't know he was being filmed. And he said, one of the things he said that I thought was a little shocking was he admitted that he said, U.S. government's role isn't to provide health care or daycare for children. That should be up to the states. The role of federal government is to wage war. And that's what That's deep state got to him. They do what they try to do with all politicians is get them to adopt deep state, let's say, ideology. He's been ideology compromised slowly over the years. He's him thinking the U.S. government's goal is to wage war. That is deep state thinking. That is what the deep state wants you to think. It's so that you wage all the wars necessary to continue the U.S. hegemony over the world. Ideally, the U.S. president is concerned with U.S. people and providing daycare, or is working with states to provide that. Maybe it isn't necessarily the federal government's job, but the U.S. president should be concerned with that over wars. So yes, he did change. And it's nowhere that more obvious than on the international scene, where first term he was isolationist. He was not interested in doing anything internationally, really. This time around, he's all on board with the deep state agenda of regime change here, regime change there. He didn't. He tried to put a stop to Ukraine war, but he gave up and just let it continue. He's indistinguishable from what Kamala Harris would have been on the international stage. And by the way, everything Trump's done internationally, Kamala Harris would have done too, pretty much, except Greenland. I don't think Kamala Harris would have gone after Greenland. But the rest, like Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, Ukraine, she would have done exactly the same thing as Trump. And let's put to rest one idea that Nick Fuentes pushes, that, yeah, Kamala Harris would have done the Iran war. No. Biden administration was Israel's bitch in exactly the same way as Trump. Let's not kid ourselves.
You know, to every child who dreams for their future, every parent who dreams for their child, I will fight for you, I will win for you, I am your voice, I will deliver a real victory. You know, you realize these are words that someone else wrote for him, that he read, that he thought sounded.
You know, he was against the deep state. He was an honest force for change by how much they tried to destroy him, by setting up the Russia hoax to try to impeach him before he was even president. That's proof that he was an outside force that the deep state fought against. The media coverage of him, so overwhelmingly negative, and still to today, that is proof that the deep state still hates him. Yes, they've co-opted him, at least internationally, but domestically, they don't want deportations. Deportations risk housing prices declining, which would spiral into a financial crisis because mortgage defaults, and endanger the U.S., the dollar. So yeah, domestically, he's doing things the deep state hates. Internationally, they've captured him there. So first term, he was an truly outside force, doing everything against deep state pretty much. But he didn't have much power because his entire cabinet was working against him. This time around, there's deep state infiltration of his cabinet. He must have done deals and stuff like that. And he's been more effective than he was in his first term. He didn't get his wall, for example, in the first term. But he's actually been able to deport people in the second term, despite all the protests against ICE. So he's been more effective domestically second term than first term. Still not as much as many people like Asmongold would want, but trust me, he's doing everything he can when faced with an entire state apparatus trying to obstruct him. You know, all the judges are basically shutting down all his agenda at every opportunity. It's when you're struggling against that type of resistance, there's only so much you can do. It's so I wasn't faulting him for his lack of action domestically because he was doing the best he can. What I do fault him for is getting tricked into this Iran war. That was just a self-goal. It was him destroying his legacy. You just can't make that type of mistake on the international stage. The millions are going to starve because of closure of the Strait of Hormuz, because of no fertilizer reaching the world. I'm not. Yeah, you do a mistake that causes that. I can't just say, "Oops, my bad." That's not. You can't just do that.
Sounded good. We kind of attached our hopes onto him. Maybe it was always like this, but it's just not the same anymore. The magic is gone. This is not the Trump from 2016. Maybe the Trump from 2016 wasn't even what existed in our imaginations. But it's like,
I wouldn't have mind if everything he's done on the international stage, even though it was everything the deep state want, as long as he hadn't done this Iran war, which is absolutely catastrophic. Again, I don't think anyone, if Nick Fuentes is under the delusion that someone else than Trump could have been more effective domestically, like more deportations, no. The ICE protests would have still happened. It would happen even harder if someone had pushed harder. And it's with the resistance he's facing towards his domestic agenda, he did the best he could. As for the Epstein files, he got them released. He got a lot of it released, which is more than the Biden administration ever done. Like Nick Fuentes saying we're better off, we would have been better off under Kamala Harris. Zero. That is the amount of Epstein documents that would have been released if Kamala Harris had been elected. Zero. Same amount that the Biden administration released. Zero. We would not know that Pizzagate is real for certain. That wouldn't have happened. Asmund Gold would still be completely clueless about that if Kamala Harris had been elected. So just that fact alone is a huge positive to Trump being elected. Of course, millions of people starving worldwide is not counteracts that pretty much, or more.
it's like kind of a crushing, this 2 weeks has been crushing and brutal. Now, I hopped off the Trump train a year ago, at least. I've been critical for many, many years, but
you know what? I don't mind people hopping off the Trump train. What I take serious issue with you, Nick Fuentes, is when you tell people to vote Democrat. No, if you want to tell people not to vote, fine. But there is a deep state. There is an enemy. You do not tell people to work with the enemy. And I'm saying Democrats are controlled by the deep state. Because of Trump, the Republican Party largely disconnected from the deep state, the MAGA movement. MAGA politicians are not deep state. So it could have been the opposite. It could have been the other way around in a different world. If Bernie Sanders had won the primary back in 2016 and Trump had lost his primary and it'd been Bernie Sanders against an establishment, it could have been the Democrats that untangled them from the deep state and become the anti-establishment party in a different world. But no, it was Trump that and the Republicans that became anti-establishment. So right now, you don't vote Democrat. They're deep state, and they support the war in Gaza. They support everything. Everything that's wrong with the country is stems from the deep state, and the deep state and Democrats are aligned.
last year is when I said, I'm out. I can't vote for it. But it's almost spiritually crushing because you are emotionally attached to it. He's been a part of my life for 10 years. Huge, instrumental in my life as a young, precocious political person. He means something to me. He means something to all of us. Love him, hate him. He stirs us because he is this monumental figure. And you see him now so diminished and so weak and so vulnerable and seemingly so hollow and empty. And it's kind of tragic. It's like a tragic fall from...
Oh, it's absolutely tragic. His second presidency still could have been very successful if he hadn't done this Iran war. It's just, yes, he did some missteps, like his handling of Epstein files obviously wasn't great. Despite whatever the truth with that is, I seriously suspect they've been tampered with and that we're going to get an October election surprise of leaks from the Epstein files, of accusations against Donald Trump. I see that coming before the midterms. You can quote me on that. Anyway, let's get back to
from
this.
grace. It's like this tragic whimper. You know, you almost expected, how was the story going to end? Was Trump going to get his...
So, yes, the second presidency could have been successful just if he hadn't been absolutely idiotic on Iran.
head blown off in Butler, Pennsylvania? Was he going to get thrown in jail? Was it going to be this...
And by the way, the assassination attempt against him, yeah, that was deep state. The deep state's plan was he takes a bullet to the head, and Nikki Haley, that for some reason no one understood, had been hanging around in the Republican primaries long after it was obvious that she had no chance. She just kept on hanging on. She would have been anointed the Republican candidate. That was the plan to get rid of Trump. It failed, and but they salvaged something out of that by tricking him that Iran was trying to kill him. and got him into this Iran war. So in a way, the bullet that missed him in Butler still found its mark, at least politically, because it's still ended Trump.
Climactic, dramatic. And instead, it's like, no, he's going to cover up for Epstein. He's just like the rest of them. And then he's going to show what a hollow, thin person he is, scrambling to cover it up and pivot for 2 weeks, lashing out at his base, making up nonsense, lying to our faces without even caring about it. And you see what's...
Yes, he started to do that. Ever since the Iran war, the amount of lying Trump has done has exploded exponentially. At least back in 2016, he would bluster and exaggerate enormously. But fundamentally, he wouldn't outright lie to his supporters. Now he's in outright lying territories. It's out of desperation because of the losing, because he's finished politically, and he's desperately trying to hang on. And he's lying out of his ass to delay his inevitable political demise.
left? Cat Turd, Laura Loomer, and Mark Levin. Not like this, guys. Not like this, Trump guys. And when all is said and done, at the end of the world, who's left? Cat Turd, Mark Levin, Jeffrey Epstein, Laura Loomer, Howard Lutnick.
Jeffrey Epstein, I'm hoping, is no longer alive.
These pieces of shit, scumbag, sycophant, craven opportunists, traitors to our country.
Yeah, okay, but come on, guys.
Yeah, no, people that are delusional and hang on and to Trump and are just like him, refusing to acknowledge reality. Yeah, I wouldn't call them craven and all those other things. That's just Nick Fuentes being Nick Fuentes and being more insulting than he needs to be.
Guys, like, what else did we expect? Just with people in our country have no other coming watch Troy.
Just see as like
Think like they work in favor of us. It's just nonsense.
less so. Cat Turd I just see as like clueless, but the other ones, I mean, they.
Cat Turd is, as far as I understand, right? He's just that guy on Twitter that's become really popular, and then, well, maybe people know who he is now, but he's just a Twitter commentator, right? It's amazing that he's so relevant that Nick Fuentes bothers talking about him this way.
They epitomize what's wrong with the country. Not good. So, he wants us to all say Obama. Oh, if you get asked about Epstein, just say Obama. It's like, yeah, okay, dude. For the first time ever, even like a diehard Trump supporter has to kind of roll their eyes and go, yeah, okay, man, whatever. Sure.
No, I was a Trump supporter because he was anti-establishment. If he does exactly what the deep state wants, he's not anti-establishment. He's betrayed basically everything he ran for.
Dude, you're just like the rest of them. How salient that is. Used to say that about Obama. When Obama would get up and lecture us about this and that and lie to our faces, you say, fuck off.
I was against every U.S. president before Trump because he was the first and only so far anti-establishment president. I mean, he deserves a huge amount of credit for that accomplishment. Becoming the first outsider, like not basically owned by the CIA, president of the United States.
Obama. And now Trump goes up there and you say, fuck off, Trump, you liar, bullshitting politician. Wasn't he supposed to be the antithesis? And he gets up there and he say, you bullshitting
He fucked up.
Politician, get out of my face, you lying traitor.
He didn't understand the scale of the mistake he was making when he bombed the Supreme Leader. He thought it was just like Venezuela, that no matter what happened, he'd be able to walk away. He didn't understand the dynamics of closure of the Strait of Hormuz. That's basically his failure as president, is not understanding that and letting himself be deceived by Netanyahu.
It's sad. And it's not even personal. I mean, this is just what it is. I mean, of course it's...
No, it's personal for you, Nick Fuentes, because you've basically made yourself anti-Trump at this point. You've, whatever happened around January 6th, yeah, it is strange that you got out of it without any jail time, while other people languished in jail for years. And I still don't understand exactly how that happened, but you can understand why people would be skeptical of you because of it.
Personal for all of us, but it's just.
And you're whenever you urge people to vote Democrat, people just can't help but look at you as a traitor. You don't vote for the enemy. You don't. Have ever been a war where the winning strategy is for soldiers to go over to the other side and fight for the enemy? Have you ever heard of that type of war? Well, Nick Fuentes is the one arguing for that type of war. He thinks that, killing your own allies and your own forces and attacking your own ideology, undermining your own platform, Rumble, which might go under if the Democrats win Congress. They'll definitely target and try to shut down Rumble, like they've done in the EU. Yeah, aiding the enemy is not a winning strategy. So I wonder, he seems pretty smart in all other aspects. So what's this one huge, absolutely glaring issue with him is he speaks common sense, except he tells people to fight for the enemy.
Just what it is. Like, this is such a sad display. That clip, I just can't even. You look at him, and what used to be charming is now insufferable. What you used to look on him when he does this jokey thing, and you think that's so endearing and charming, tells it like it is, rough around the edges. He's a great comedian. Now you look at it, and shake your head, and you go, "What are you thinking? This is not playing like you."
He was the content president, and yeah, well, the pressure from the Iran war has made him less so. Now he's more like the deranged president that's making wild tweets because he's self-destructing. But before that, he was the content president, and Asmongold farmed him a lot.
You think it is. This is rough stuff, dude. Sad. It's a sad day. You're getting cooked, dude. You're getting cooked alive. And all the Trump supporters can say is,
Yeah, he's getting cooked, but it's only getting started. That's the real thing. Economic pain is only getting started. That means the backlash towards Trump is only getting started. And he, even if he ended the war now in a complete victory, like complete Iranian surrender, gets the nuclear material, gets everything he asked for, it's still a net negative for him because of all the economic pain still in the pipeline. But he's not going to get that. He's not going to get that factor that might dull the pain. So he's so finished politically.
it's an unforced
And Vance is going down with him. Everyone connected to Trump is going down with him because of how big the backlash is going to be.
error. Whoever did this needs to be fired. They're fumbling so hard. It's not them, dude. It's him. Can't stump the Trump. He got stumped. Teflon Don, he got hit. This is rough. It's ugly. Not working. Sad. Sad. Very, very sad. I told you it was like this. No one.
Yes, sad with a big smile on your face. I'm sure some part of you does feel that way, but another part of you is really happy about all this because I think your last video was like, I told you so, I told you so. Okay, for everyone who thinks we might have been better at Kamala Harris, remember, A, we'd be in this Iran war probably last year. It would have happened faster. B, the Epstein files would have never been released. Just like Biden never released anything. And just like Biden was completely Israel's bitch, Kamala Harris would have been the same.
One listened. I saw this clip. And last thing I'll say, then we'll move on to Iran. I do want to touch on Iran tonight. Well, you know what? We're running out of time. I actually can't. We'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow. The last thing I'll say is this. I found a clip of my show, and I promise this isn't just, I guess it is a little self-indulgent.
I should start watching these videos directly on Rumble. I'm being lazy, like, so to know this.
But I found this clip from my show last year where I said, okay, so now they're making Justice League edits of RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard and Vivek and Trump. I'm like, this content sucks. This isn't funny. It's not cool. It's not based. This whole
I haven't even seen this content.
thing is just terrible. And I said this a year ago. That's how I felt a year ago. I was looking at it and saying, Trump is not engaging. These rallies are not fun. They're not funny. They're not interesting. What's the appeal? He's not even that based anymore. He's like getting worse. He's old. He's slow. He's monotonous. He's repetitive. Like, this just sucks. And you can say, well, who cares? He's old and it is what it is. But it's like, no, everyone's pretending it's still magical. And now a year later, I feel like everybody kind of sees what I mean by that. Now everyone's like, wow, I guess I never. And it goes to show how powerful, people's penchant to.
No, it was before the election. Remember, the bullet hit his ear. Trump raising his hand, fist bumping, saying, never give up. I forget what he was yelling, but never surrender. Yeah, no, Trump still had it during the election cycle. I just think that ever since the Iran war broke out, or since this Iran war pressure built up, the pressure he's under to both attack Iran and then after you attack, the nightmare he's found himself in, I can imagine that completely drained the life out of him. can see that in his body language. But Nick Fuentes is trying to say that's because he's old. No, it's because he was dragged into a losing position, and he was trapped in a big way into this Iran war by Israel, because he's the one, they tricked him back during his first term to rip up the nuclear agreement with Iran. And that's one reason that they had so much leverage to force him into this war, is that if he just struck an Iran deal that was just like the Obama deal, just maybe a tiny bit better, everyone would be like, what the fuck? Why did you tear up that Obama's agreement if you're going to just do the exact same thing? So he had to get more than the Iran deal. And Iran wasn't willing to give that up. And so he attacked. There's one big reason. He had no way to avoid this war, because if he struck the same Iran deal that Obama did, that'd be seen as a big loss for him. It'd hurt him politically. And that was definitely one factor that got us into this war, his lack of an off-ramp before the war started. Because Iran was pressuring him about nuclear material, and he couldn't strike a deal like the Obama deal. That was off the table because he ripped that up, and it limited him.
Persuade themselves really is. You know what I'm saying? Now it's kind of all hitting at the same time. Iran, amnesty, Epstein, you name it. And people are like, whoa, Trump does look kind of pathetic. But he looked pathetic a year ago. But people have such an ability to trick themselves.
Did he look pathetic when he was raising his fist in the air after the bullet hit his ear? Nick Fuentes, did he look pathetic then? Because you're rewriting history. A year ago, maybe after he was elected, maybe he lost some of his energy. I don't know. I don't watch Trump's speeches, I have to admit. But I know that at least before the election, he seemed to be still doing fine, his energy.
People have such an ability through groupthink, because of, everyone's on board, and we're kind of being told what to think about it. And people think that's what they think about it, but they don't. They're being told to think a certain way. People have such a power for self-deception. It is such a challenge to remain objective. And
yeah, well, you fail on that issue front a little bit too. Like when you try to tell yourself that Kamala Harris would have been better than Trump, and you've actually said those words, that is delusion on an order of magnitude about equivalent to Trump thinking he's winning this Iran war. That's the order of magnitude of delusion you are when you say Kamala Harris might have been better. Completely off your rockers when you say stuff like that. And that's because you've painted yourself into an anti-Trump corner, and you have an incentive to believe it.
And to be objective, you have to be willing to displease everybody. You have to be an asshole. You don't want to be the guy that isn't Roman saluting him. You don't want to be the guy that's got his arms folded, that's not cheering in the grandstand. You know what I'm saying? Like a year ago, nobody was at this, but they said to themselves, no, it's good. It's good. It's pretty good stuff.
What's good?
Because there was just this powerful self-delusion.
We got a huge number of Epstein files, and the Epstein files we got confirmed Pizzagate, which huge credit for that for the Trump administration, despite their slow rolling it out. But you have to remember, the entire deep state is trying to obstruct everything Trump does. We don't know how much pressure and threats they've made against maybe possibly cabinet members of Trump's cabinet members. We don't know what everything is going on. I actually didn't believe we'd get as much as we have in terms of the Epstein files. He definitely deserves credit for that, despite what's going to be leaked about him prior to the elections. I'm absolutely certain.
And I was the dick who was like, no, this is crap. This is not funny. Staying alive edits are not funny. They will never be funny. None of this shit is funny, and it's not based. And, anyways, that's just a word on political control. That's a word. That's a true cult-like effect. But anyway, I do want to move on. We're going to take a look at our super chats. We'll see what you guys have to say about it. I apologize, but we're...
All right. Let's leave that off for that Nick Fuentes section. We'll see what he has to say about Iran maybe tomorrow. And, let me put it to you this way. I think Trump would have been fine as second-term president if he managed to avoid this Iran war. And I think Nick Fuentes would be a fabulous commentator, a big overall positive for the United States, if he didn't always urge people to vote Democrats. Without that huge issue, I would have no problems with Nick Fuentes. That literally might. Oh, and also saying stuff like Kamala Harris would have been better. That's the same thing. It's insane. It's, again, that mistake on Nick Fuentes' part, thinking Kamala Harris would have been better than Trump, is as insane as Trump's decision to attack Iran's supreme leader. And unlike Trump, Nick Fuentes, you can actually fix your huge issue. You can stop being crazy that way, and it won't cost you. It won't have huge negative impact. You're not trapped into it like Trump is. So maybe consider not urging people to vote Democrat at some point. Maybe. Just an idea. Anyway, this will be on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Come watch on Kick or Twitch. And I'll see you next video. Bye.